What if real success isn't about how others see you, but how deeply you back yourself? In this episode, I'm joined by Neelu Agarwal, Head of Belonging, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion at the Prudential Regulation Authority. Neelu shares her journey from self-doubt to self-respect and how letting go of external validation helped her rediscover her ambition, purpose and voice. If you've ever questioned your path or felt like you were holding yourself back, this conversation will show you what thriving on your own terms really looks like. Enjoy. Neelu, welcome to Great Conversations.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for having me on. You're an inspiration and it means a lot to have this platform.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very kind. I am just going to jump straight to it because the question that you have been left by the previous guest is amazing. So, Neelu, how are you living a life that reflects your choices, values, and purpose?
That's a very good question. It made me think a lot. It's a beautiful question, by the way. Um, I would like to first of all start with a disclaimer that I wouldn't claim to be someone who is fully living my life, completely aligned to my values, purpose. I try to, but I think there's a lot of work that I can do on it. But having said that, I'm proud of a few things. I think it's really interesting. When I was doing this course to be a happiness coach, they made us do an exercise to understand what our core values are. And interestingly, my core values happen to be learning, achievement, and power. And it was really interesting that when it comes to learning, I think I am this person who is all about wanting to grow every day. There were these words by a very famous motivational speaker called Jim Rohn. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's fantastic, one of the most charismatic influencers, I would say. And he said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And that really resonated with me. And I think this is one of my core values. I would say that I love to learn and invest in myself every day. In terms of my passion and purpose, I would say that I feel really strongly about wanting to be someone's rescue, wanting to inspire, uplift people, and helping people see their potential. Um, and and I think that my job really helps me in living that value. Um, a lot of what DEI or belonging DEI is about is to help people meet their potential and help the organization reach its potential to build a more happy, a more fair place at work. And I think by virtue of my job, I definitely feel that I get to live that value. Um, and yeah, as a mother, I like to spend a lot of time with my son. I do want to always give him that Saturday or Sunday where I'm giving him one unique experience every weekend or every second weekend.
Do you know what I absolutely love about that answer is whether consciously or unconsciously, you've answered it in the three buckets, which is yourself, your career, and your family. And so I love the fact that in all of those parts of your life, you are, building that around your values. I think that's absolutely beautiful. And it sounds like and for me, it's such a great foundation from which to, I think, build a peaceful, loving, beautiful, balanced life, isn't it? Is to make sure that you've got your eye on each of those components and that they're grounded in your values. Yeah, and I would love to sort of look at this concept because you said one of them was power. One of your core values when you did the exercise was power. And I love that term. I think it's so nuanced because for me, historically it's been power over. And I would love to understand like how that concept of power and that definition has evolved for you when it comes to linking it to belonging, which I know is a huge part of what you're passionate about and what you do.
Yes, indeed. That's a beautiful question, Nicola. Thanks for that. I think for me, power, when one listens to that word, you feel like, oh, this person is probably trying to dominate or it's not seen in a very positive sense. I think when I thought of writing it as a value, I was not very proud of it. It felt like I wasn't liking myself as much. But I think for me, power is not just about power, it's about empowering. It's about coming from a place of knowing that I don't need to constantly seek permission. I can give the world notice. I don't need to constantly seek validation from others. I am the biggest sponsor for myself, and I need to give myself that power to believe that if I am behind myself, every other sponsor is just a bonus. But I am the most essential sponsor and the person who needs to issue that power to myself. And I think that's where I'm coming from. I like to always come from a place of not feeling like a victim. I don't like that victim mentality at all. And maybe maybe because I'm aware of that's who I used to be a few years ago. And maybe I'm aware of the consequences of it, that it doesn't really serve you. Because if you're kind of saying that, oh, this is happening because of XYZ, you're immediately giving your power away to somebody else. And you're telling yourself that, oh, I can do nothing about it, which doesn't serve you at all. How are you going to move forward? But if you say that, okay, this is what's happening in my life, but let me see what's the next best step I can take. I can't solve the entire puzzle, but what's the next piece I can put together? And that's a very empowering mindset to have. And if you're able to just go step by step, you will actually see that the issue has been resolved. You're able to kind of take control of that situation. So I think that's the power of power in my view, to to help yourself not feeling like you're trapped, and to tell yourself that you can do this.
And do you know what's really jumping out to me as you're talking is this sense of like personal responsibility and accountability as well for your lived experience. And so, my question's going to be, and you sort of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but how did you get there? So, what has your journey been to get to the space now where you are empowering yourself every day to go and live your best life and be the best version of yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a very pain to purpose kind of a story, pain transforming into purpose. I think growing up, I was not somebody who had a very good self esteem. I think I grew up with a very strong inferiority complex, maybe because, I did never felt like I was the most beautiful in the room or the most intelligent in the room. I have a very gorgeous sister, elder sister. She's incredibly intelligent. And sometimes, you do feel a bit overshadowed in the process, compared to in the process. And then you start believing that you don't have a possibility because you feel invisible, in some ways. And it's interesting because I always wanted to be an actress, and just kind of feeling like, I don't feel beautiful enough. I don't feel like I'm social enough, or I have strong interpersonal skills. It always made me put my passion off, put my dream off, feeling like I can't be this. This is not who I can morph into. There's no way I'll be able to become that version that, I don't have what it takes to be there, kind of a thing. I had this initial mentality of, oh, I don't feel comfortable being a part of this group, or I don't feel comfortable socializing. But I had to really ask myself very honestly, is it them or is it me? Am I, am I investing in myself? Am I reading up on stuff? Do I have a hobby to even talk to people about? And having those honest conversations with myself really helped me understand that, okay, it's not about them. I need to do my bit to feel like I belong to myself first. I think that was the key turning point for me. That you're always seeking validation from others. You always want that acceptance from others. But somewhere, I don't think I liked myself. When I moved from India to London, I realized that there were very few role models like me at work. I was very good at work. I was growing really fast in India. But when I moved here, I saw that, there are hardly any women in top senior positions, let alone minority ethnic or women like me who have come from overseas, who have a local accent, uh, who think differently, who may not understand the social clues, which some others, get instantly. And then you're kind of put off from opportunities. People don't consider you for opportunities because you don't seem to fit that mold, and you are not aware what are those cues, what are those things that you need to do to be seen as someone who can be trusted, despite the fact that you have talent and everything. And then the most transformational experience happened in my life, which was I went on mat leave during COVID, and I went through postnatal depression. My body had totally changed. I'd put on some 25, 28 kgs. struggled to lose weight, and felt like, I can't recognize myself anymore. And while I was so ambitious before mat leave, I was struggling to have that kind of ambition. And when that ambition went away, it felt like, so who am I now? Like, who am I?
Do you know, Neelu, what you're sharing is, I think you said it earlier, you know, oftentimes our pain and our experiences are all in service of us bringing our purpose into the world. So, as you were going through that journey to find belonging within yourself, and you said the most beautiful comment before, you said about learning to like yourself, and learning not to hold yourself back and to strip away comparison. And it's just like, yeah, what is it, comparison is the thief of joy. Whoever said that was very clever. um but as you went on that personal journey yourself, it also just gives a lot more, I think, gravitas to them when you step into that role professionally, because you've walked that journey and you understand how difficult it is as well. And I would love to know a little bit more, like, from your personal journey, what are some of the practical things that you did that really helped build that relationship of love and respect for yourself?
Um, that's a beautiful question. I think I was very strategic about my insecurities, which means that I I remember once I just sat down with a paper and pen, that why do I not feel confident in certain settings? I felt like I was very confident with a few people, but I was not confident in certain settings. Um, and I felt like, a sense of frustration that why can't I rely on myself? Like, why can't I just always feel confident? Why do I get this anxiety in certain settings where I'm like unsure of how I'm going to turn up, how I'm going to unfold in a certain setting? And I think that was the key thing, to be really honest about your insecurities, to be really honest about your gaps. As I told you earlier, I think looks was a big one for me, and I say so because I had to go through a massive orthodontic treatment of about 4 years to fix that gap. I started it when I was 24, and it was a very long journey to take. But I think when I crossed that, I felt like, okay, this was something that was really bothering me. Sometimes, especially when you come from an Asian household, when you've grown up in India, um, looks is a very important thing. People constantly compare, people constantly talk about, complexions, beauty. It's a very essential part of of how women are judged and seen. And I'm not talking about it in a critical way, but this is how it is. And it's very natural that when you grow up hearing those things, you attach your sense of self a lot to those things. And it kind of becomes that foundation of whether I feel confident or not because of it. And I don't think that this probably affects everybody, but this was my honest truth. It was affecting me. And I just knew that, no matter how brilliant I am in academics, if I'm not cracking something which I know is my truth, it's affecting me, I'm only going to go this far.
At some point, you can only run from your limiting beliefs and your lack of confidence, lack of self esteem for so long before you have to face up to it. Because, as you say, and I really like this, I don't know why, I just have this analogy of like crossing that ledge, or like, taking that leap forward, or as you say, like, you're only going to get to so far, but if you want to keep moving forward, it's dragging you back, it's holding you down. So at some point you have to face up to it. And as you say, it doesn't even have to be, something, it it can just be what people might seem as innocuous. As you say, you've grown up in a household where that's been part of the culture. And for you, that's something that you've internalized. For somebody else, they might not have done. It doesn't matter. There's no judgment in that. It just
Absolutely,
is.
absolutely.
Like,
Yeah,
and
it
so
just is exactly.
yeah. So then I love what you're talking to is then back to this idea of personal responsibility and accountability, to be like, you know what? This is something I'm carrying around with me. I'm noticing how it's holding me back. I'm just going to deal with that now. Like, I'm done. Like, sometimes you just get there, don't you? Like, you just get to a point in your life and you're like, can't do this no more. Like I'm tired of my own shit. Like I can't do it no more.
100%. You're absolutely right. And it's so interesting, Nicola. I went through that entire orthodontic treatment, and somewhere there was an unfinished desire in me. I was doing a job in finance at the time. And but that hidden desire of wanting to get into acting was burning inside me. And I remember when I finished my entire treatment, I created a portfolio and I sent it around, and I went for auditions as well.
I
And I,
love it.
yeah, and while it led to nothing, because then I got married, moved to London immediately after that. I can't tell you, Nicole, it wasn't about the outcome. While I had started all this with the outcome in mind, the fact that I took that journey to just address something that was bothering me, and I could do something that I really wanted to do. I really wanted to go for that audition. And I went there with confidence, not fearing that I can't do it because of something that was holding me back, was massive for me.
Where did you get the courage from to stop and to face the fear?
I think I asked myself the question, what's the price I'm going to pay if I don't do this? And I think that price was a lot bigger and higher. If I continue to not face my fears, I just felt like I could not have the courage to put my hand up for, bolder opinions in meetings, or to go for bolder opportunities that demands you to have very good communication skills. And imagine if you just sit on a weakness and not do anything about it, how many opportunities just go off from your hand?
What's just coming up to me is like, this idea of a cost and a price, because we're often so unconscious in how we live, and we're so busy and we're so distracted that we make decisions and we don't really think of this cost benefit analysis. If I'm saying yes to this, actually what am I saying no to? What am I blocking off? What am I holding back from? Where am I artificially creating a ceiling for myself? And I think that's what you're talking to, is like being really conscious and aware of the impact that your decisions and your mindset were having on the life that you were creating for yourself. I'm really interested, like, how did you cultivate that level of consciousness around the decisions and the sort of, I guess it's more this purposeful way of living your life? Or was it not conscious? Was it something that you just intuitively leaned into and just followed?
I think I intuitively leaned into it. I realized, Nicola, that I was someone um, who did not respect my inner voice much earlier. An earlier version of me was just constantly busy in issuing certificates to other people that be my judge me, validate me. And that person doesn't even know that you've issued them a certificate, and then they unintentionally do something which makes you feel less than, and then it doesn't serve you at all. And while all these things were happening, I realized that, with me doing those small things of working on, maybe the dental treatment, which was really bothering me, or my language, or developing a hobby so that I can, engage with people in a constructive way, and also share something and release some knowledge. It made me realize that it it can just be so empowering when you do that. Doing those things, I realized that I was gaining more and more self-respect for myself, because I was, kind of feel like I'm doing something which others more won't do. So maybe I deserve something that others don't deserve. And you, when you start liking yourself because you're keeping your word, you're keeping your commitments, because when you make a commitment to yourself, no one's listening. And when you breach it, no one's listening. It's only you. So when you have every choice to breach that commitment that you're making to yourself, but you don't, you do it, you earn so much respect for yourself in the process. And with that respect comes the will to want to like yourself. You feel like, no, I want to be behind Neelu. Neelu does what she says she's going to do, and she can be trusted, And then when your inner validation becomes very high because you trust yourself, you respect yourself, you stop relying much on that external validation. So the courage to do these bold things came from taking those small steps that were making me scared and getting over those small fears, and then feeling like, no, I'm reliable. And look, I'm proud of me. Look, I'm doing something that I felt I couldn't do, and giving yourself those small promotion badges, you know, which by doing, the internal high fives. Um, and you then start realizing that you don't need those external validations as much, because you needed them because you didn't like yourself, so you were reliant on them. But when you start liking yourself, you're not so reliant on those external validations, and that's what keeps you, in that journey of trying and being courageous and being bold.
Oh, do you know what? That is the most beautiful example of somebody explaining self-worth and how you go and develop it that I've ever heard. I really, really love how you've just explained that and how you've broken it down into the incremental small parts that are so vital. I absolutely love that.
I had a very interesting realization that, we all have an inside story, but we compare our inside story to somebody else's outside story, not realizing that even they have an inside story. No matter, even I've progressed in my career, but it's not like that internal chatter goes away just because you've got promoted. But when we look at somebody who's got that grade, who's become that CEO, who's become that next head, who's earned that label, you kind of look at them and feel like, oh, but their life is sorted. They've got the money. No, they have some internal chatter going on, which you don't have access to, but you're comparing your inside story to the outside story and thinking less of yourself. And just operating from that place of knowing that nobody is perfect, nobody has got it figured out, and everybody is struggling with an internal battle, gives you the comfort to keep going, because you kind of know that you are not perfect, and even they are not perfect.
Hmm. And it's back to the empowerment theme that I think is just sort of so evident in how you show up in the world. And one of the things that I always say when it comes to mindset is life is just a story, and we think we put a lot of store behind this is the truth, but actually it's all just a story. And when you know that it's a story and that you're the author of that story, then it's really empowering because then you get to be in choice over what that story looks like. And there's many different things that influence the story that you're telling yourself. And then, as you say, understanding that if your life is a story, then everybody else's life is a story. And then we can start to get really sort of esoteric and say, well, is there truth? And what is the concept of truth and fact if it's all just story? But there is something really empowering around that, as you say, of just sort of you get to be in choice over the story that not only you tell yourself, but the story that you tell yourself about other people or situations as well, or scenarios that you're in. And what I wanted to really go into, because I'm really curious, obviously, how are you taking what you learned about building self-love for yourself? How are you bringing that into an organization and sort of, for me, like using that as a basis to then build this sense of belonging and inclusion as a stable foundation to then go and build healthier, happier, more inclusive, successful organizations?
Absolutely. That's a very good question, Nicola. Thank you for that. I think what I'm trying to do is have conversations about leaders sharing their vulnerabilities. I personally think that it's hard to be a leader. It's hard to be a line manager. It's hard to be in the middle, because, interestingly, I feel that most of the middle management we talk about, and I say middle management because I don't know about others, but my lived experience at work is heavily influenced by my line manager, and I think most of us are in that category. When your line manager is good, your life is sorted. Your job matters, your work content matters, but what matters more is that the person who you're reporting to understands you, respects you, validates you, recognizes your work, takes care of your feelings, etc. And most of the time, issues at workplace happen when you are not happy with your line manager, or somehow the connection is not as strong, or there is an expectation mismatch on both the sides. And I think that while tone from the top is very important when it comes to DEI, work from the middle is more important. A lot of times you are promoted into a management role, which is about managing people, their feelings, at the back of your delivery skills, not at the back of your people management skills. But when you earn that title, people suddenly expect you to be aware of everybody's lived experience. People suddenly expect you to know the language and how to give feedback, how to have effective bilateral conversations, how to take care of equity and opportunities. But you've never been trained for that. And if we can create an organization where we all know the basic essentials and the basic to-dos that lead to create that environment for all, where we are not kind of operating from a place of protected characteristic, but we are operating from a place of heart to heart. You are a heart count, I'm a heart count. And, let's treat each other as people who have feelings and whose feelings need to be taken care of.
It's bringing the humanity into the workplace, isn't it? It's getting what I'm hearing is it's getting you to see each other as human beings who have feelings and a head and a heart and lived experience rather than just numbers. And again, I keep going back to our earlier conversation around I think to be able to show up that vulnerable and that transparent and in all your humanity, you have to be grounded in a deep sense of love, self-love and self-worth and self-awareness so that you're able to say, this is where I'm imperfect and this is where things are not so great. And there's no judgment around that. Because for me, there's a lot of power in what you're talking to. It takes a lot of self control and self management to be able to stand in a space where you can hold that for yourself and for other people and manage and lead through that. And it makes the job of being a leader and a manager much more complicated and nuanced. And there's a lot more strength in that, I think, than just the the um the lack of emotional intelligence that we sometimes get showing up in leadership.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree with you.
So, who do you need to be in 2025 in order to keep bringing more of your purpose into the world?
I think I need to be more disciplined. I have certain aspirations. I have certain personal goals in mind. Um, I want to go bigger in my vision of making growth contagious for myself and for others. Um, and I need to put in work to study more and to take out time to release that knowledge more through appropriate platforms. But that needs discipline and that needs consistency. And I think that is something that I want to aim for to 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 really be committed and more disciplined in my vision for 2025.
Wow. Well, that's gonna that's gonna be a sight to behold. I was gonna say you're already disciplined and doing so much. So wow, if we 10x you, I can't wait to see what's gonna come then for the rest of this year. Um, and so what is one thing, I ask all my guests this and I'm really interested. What is one thing that other people value that you don't?
I think that a lot of times, and this is an earlier version of me, so I am those other people here, I used to immediately attach a sense of premium if somebody was very senior giving an opinion, very experienced giving an opinion, very confident saying something, and I would immediately belittle my judgment and my opinion just because, oh, this is a certain title having this opinion and I need to kind of just listen to it. And I see a lot of people doing that as well. They do value um, the cover as much as the content of the book, but I don't think I'm that at all. I um, I and I don't think I'm like that at all because it doesn't matter who you are. You could be a student giving a very strategic idea to me, or you could be a CEO or a very senior person saying something to me. I am not going to weigh an opinion or recommendation because of your label. I really try to go by content. I listen to my team as intently as I would to a very senior person. And I don't overregard or disregard people because of their labels.
It makes sense that you say that when you spoke so beautifully about how you've worked to empower yourself and to not hold yourself back. And so to get to the space now where you're not making yourself feel small because of someone else's title, you're not yeah, it makes total sense, and it's so empowering. Neelu, I have loved our conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your perspective and your insight with me. And I'm very excited to see what is to come in 2025 for you. What did we learn from Neelu today? Well, for me, it's that true growth begins when we stop outsourcing our worth and start listening inward. Thriving isn't about perfection. It's about presence, self-respect, and taking one brave step at a time. This is the final episode of season 5, and I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in, sharing your reflections, and being part of this community. While we take a break for the rest of the year, now is the perfect time to revisit some of the 50 plus episodes in our archive. There's honestly so much wisdom there waiting for you. And if you're ready for support, then Integrate is always here to help you connect with yourself and build a life that truly works for you. As always, I'd like to thank my editor, Stian Moritz, and musician, Jamie Jenkin. I'm sending you all so much love, and until next time, bye for now.